Have you considered reversing your policy of releasing open records requests to all the media, given the criticism that what you're trying to do is dissuade reporters from filing open records requests, and some say that it's actually a punitive action?
Is that a question or a statement?
It's a question. Have you considered reversing?
You know what? I have not had one complaint from any taxpayers for releasing information to all the media. That's the first point. Second point is this. Not everyone receives their news from the daily or weekly newspaper. And it seems to me, in the spirit of transparency, that we should provide CORA requested information to all media outlets at the same time. Now, I understand that individual media outlets don't like that, but I think that's the responsible thing to do. And so we will continue to do that, at least on the near term. If there's a better approach, if any of you in the media do not want to receive that information, let me know. We can take you off our distribution list. But I don't think there's anything in the law that requires us to provide core information only to the outlet requesting it. To me, it's more appropriate to make sure that the broadest spectrum of our citizens receive that information in a timely basis. Now, keep in mind, we also don't charge for core requests, as does the county, right? Doesn't El Paso County? We don't.
Sometimes.
Some do, some don't. And that's very controversial, I know.
Why wait for media to file these kinds of requests? You know, you advocate transparency. Why don't you, on your own, release this information to the public? Why do you need us to request it from you?
First of all, we have an operation to run here, 24/7. Our job is to provide public safety, other services as we can. And so we have essentially a very complex business, if you will, an operation to run here. So we're not spending our time trying to think of questions that someone might ask. We have a lifetime and beyond of information. So the next question would be, why do we pick this information to disseminate and not that information? I want to encourage the media to ask us questions. Now, I do think, and I'll be candid about this, and you're a participant in this, Daniel, I do believe that the core requests that have been coming in terms of the volume at least, are overreaching. But that's fine. If that's the law, we're going to comply with the law. But I think it's appropriate for us to provide the information to everyone at the same time.
So those actions aren't meant to penalize someone for submitting a core request that the city doesn't really want to take the time to fill, then, is what you're saying?
Not at all. It's not meant to penalize anybody. It's intended to provide answers to the broadest spectrum of citizens concurrently. Not everybody gets their news from the daily or weekly newspaper. There are broadcast media, there are other print media, and to me, the fairest way to provide information is if somebody else asks for information, we're going to provide it to you as well.
It seems to me that you've spent quite a bit of money adding to your communications budget, and yet you still can't predict what the public needs to know without reporters doing the communications job for them.
We have an operation to run here. Responding to reporters' questions is important, but that's secondary. We have complied with every core request. I noticed that you, Adrian, said it took us 9 days to respond to a request.
That was 16 days.
How many?
16. Actually 17.
I'd like to know more about that, Cindy, as to the circumstances, why it took that long, whether or not that was within...
Sure. Volume, amount of participants, people who weren't around to... I mean, that was a pretty large request. Then it had to go through the attorney's office. And I think we dedicated 3 attorneys about 40 hours to go through and read all of them. So it was a pretty large request.
It was 180 pages worth of documents. Earlier in the year, Cindy, I requested documents in regards to the Terry Velasquez investigation. That was thousands of pages of documents, and I think it took you less time to respond.
And actually, we dedicated 5 attorneys who worked all week long to fulfill that core request.
Well, one of the things we're starting to do now is we are capturing all of our cost information. I'll be sharing that with you in coming months. What it costs to respond to each of these requests. When we tie up 4 or 5 attorneys per week, forget the photocopying costs, that's peanuts. But when we tie up people who have other jobs to do on something like this, I think we need to know, and the public should know what it costs. And so we'll be capturing that information. But there's no intent to penalize anybody. I think it's an open and transparent approach to making sure that the broadest spectrum of our citizens receive information, and I stand by that.
So is that why you're posting all of these responses on the city's website? Oh, wait a minute, I guess you're not.
I'm sorry,
So-
Pam, I don't quite track with.
Well, if people get their information from a variety of sources, why not post this on your website? That's probably a source for people's info, but you're not doing that. So that sort of contradicts this argument that you're wanting to be transparent when you don't even put it on your own website.
Well, we did put, we have put them on there. In fact, the last three, and if we have slipped, we will make sure that we put them on there. That's a very good point. They need to be on there.
Okay. Yes, Ralph?
Given that this decision that affects us all was made without obviously our involvement, would you be willing to meet with management of different media outlets who would be interested from across the city to talk about this subject?
To talk about my directive that we disseminate all core information to all media outlets concurrently?
Yes,
No, I will
but-
not. That's not a matter for discussion, Ralph. That's a mayoral decision I made.
Would you be willing to listen to our side?
Oh, yeah, if you want to, sure. I mean, if you
That's
want to.
what I mean.
Oh, sure, yeah, sure, absolutely. And you know what drives this, Ralph? It's the tsunami of core requests that continue to come in here from your paper and from the Gazette. That's where it is, right there. And it's eating up tons and tons of time here. And I have had some complaints from some citizens wanting to know why we're providing information only to certain outlets. Well, that's kind of what triggered it. I understand why it doesn't fit with your business plan. And we can have a cup of coffee and sure, if you want to visit about that. We want to do the right thing. We're not here to promote any individual media outlet at the same time. And so because TV stations, let's just say KOAA or KRDO for example, don't send over here media requests, should they not have the information? I guess we should maybe debate that. So no, I'll do that, sure. But it's not a group decision either, just like it's not, I don't have any involvement in what you print about me either. I mean, that's your shot to call. Yes, ma'am.
I just had one comment. It's not really a question.
Sure.
Earlier in the discussion of this item, you referenced we have a business to run. Government is not a business. Business is not subject to QORA. Government is subject to QORA. So just FYI, the city is not a business.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Anybody else have questions?
I did want to switch over to the USOC grant inquiry. Can you give us more details about exactly who's going to conduct that investigation?